Before there were forests, before the oceans were alive, before the first breath was ever drawn, Earth was silent. It was a young planet, violent, raw, and unstable. Volcanoes raged endlessly, spewing fire into a toxic sky. Lightning tore through dark clouds, striking boiling seas with the fury of creation. Meteors rained from space, carrying fragments of distant worlds. This was not a home for life. This was chaos. And yet, it was here, in this storm of fire and water, that something extraordinary began to stir. The oceans, restless and dark, were heavy with chemicals. Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, drifting together in the deep, colliding with the force of storms and heat. Scientists call it the primordial soup, a strange ocean of possibilities. But life did not begin with a sudden flash. It did not arrive like lightning. It whispered. Somewhere in the shadows of that ancient earth, molecules found a rhythm. Chains of chemicals aligned themselves in repeating patterns. They learned, in their blind and mindless way, to copy. Replication, the very heart of life. It began slowly, so slowly we would not notice if we stood there. A molecule here, another there, copying, breaking, recombining. Most patterns vanished, but some endured. They learned persistence. They learned survival. And so, without voice, without thought, without intent, the impossible happened. The lifeless became alive. From this fragile spark, the great story began. Every tree, every animal, every human thought you have ever had traces back to this moment. The hidden dawn, when Earth stopped being silent rock and storm and became something more, a cradle of life. For hundreds of millions of years after life first appeared, Earth remained invisible. There were no forests, no animals swimming through the oceans, no wings in the sky. Life was microscopic, tiny, fragile, and yet unstoppable. The seas became kingdoms of microbes, bacteria and archaea, ancient lineages whose descendants still live within us today. They floated through the waters, multiplying in silence. Some clung to hot volcanic vents, thriving in poisonous chemicals. Others lived in darkness, devouring minerals from the earth itself. They did not need air, they did not need light. They were architects of survival. Then one of the greatest revolutions in the history of our planet began. Some of these microbes discovered a way to drink sunlight. They invented photosynthesis. They captured the energy of the sun and transformed it into food. But in doing so, they released a dangerous waste: oxygen. To us, oxygen is life. But to most early microbes, it was death. Oceans rusted red as oxygen reacted with iron. Countless species perished, unable to breathe the new air. This was the first great extinction, but it was also the birth of the future. The survivors learned to use oxygen. They turned poison into power. With oxygen came new energy, new possibilities. The sky turned blue. The air became breathable. The Great Oxidation was not just a chemical shift, it was destiny unfolding. Because without it, there would never have been animals. Never a fish, never a bird, never us. But oxygen was only the beginning. The next step would change everything. Some cells began to consume others, and in a twist of fate, they did not destroy what they devoured. Instead, they formed partnerships. One cell lived inside another, and together they created something greater. This was the birth of the eukaryotic cell, complex, powerful, and filled with potential. Inside every one of these new cells lived ancient symbionts, the descendants of bacteria that had chosen cooperation over isolation. They became the mitochondria, the tiny engines that power every breath, every heartbeat, every thought. It was a quiet revolution, no explosion, no drama, just a microscopic union that unlocked the possibility of every complex creature to come. Without this miracle of cooperation, There would be no trees, no animals, no humans. Life had invented complexity, and the world would never be the same. For billions of years, life remained small. But nature is restless. Life is never content with what it already is. Cells began to join forces, not just as colonies, but as true organisms, living bodies made of many parts. They cooperated. Some cells specialized, becoming skin, others muscle, others nerves. They communicated, divided tasks, and worked as one. This was the birth of multicellularity. In the ancient oceans, strange shapes drifted, soft-bodied alien forms with no bones, no shells, no names. They left only faint impressions in ancient rocks, the Ediacaran biota, a gallery of mysteries. Were they animals, plants, something else entirely? We may never know. But they were experiments, rehearsals for the life to come. And in their silent drifting, the first whispers of animals began.